Now, here's what we're going to be challenged with. We're going to do segment 2. I want you to focus on S, but this time I don't want you to go through and do a line by line specifically on it. I want you to go through and grade it as quickly as possible. Okay? Which is a little bit closer to what you often do anyway. The only difference is that you have a transcription here as opposed to what you normally do with just the video.
¿Y tú? ¿Tienes clases que te gustan?
Sí, me gusta mi clase de economía y mi clase de empresas o business. Muy interesante para mí.
Qué bueno. Tomo la clase de economía con Dr.
Yo no.
¿Tú tienes? Yo tengo.
No, yo
Tomé el pasado. Yo tuve.
Yo tuve el economía 100, 100 con Dr. El semestre pasado.
Yo también.
Pero ahora yo tengo en la clase economía 200
¿Te gusta la clase?
Es muy interesante. Es muy interesante, pero es difícil.
Sí, yo había escuchado que mucha gente se bajó de esa clase. Mis amigos molestan.
Profesor es muy inteligente y él presenta la información bien, pero
por lo menos
los exámenes muy difíciles.
Well, one comment about this. I love this segment just for how it shows how co-constructed interactional competence really is, right? That we do need to keep in mind how the other people are interacting with the person that we're looking at in this case. Because, and this gets back to the very social cultural theory idea of like zone of proximal development, scaffolding, right? That we see this here as well. I'm just going to go very quickly through what I noticed with this. Starting off here, V initiates the question based on prior questions that S asked of P, right? So this isn't coming out from nowhere. This topic is already on the floor. But S has some difficulty responding immediately, just a little bit. So V repairs and reformulates the question in a more specific way. S seems to have some trouble responding. He's got some word search behavior, and you'll notice oftentimes the looking off is number one key there. And then this is something that I think was important to focus on. So he try-marks economía with his gaze towards P. So treating her as an expert, as someone who has the right to judge that word. Now here was something that was a little bit equivocal for me. So this weird OCRI, Open Class Repair Initiator, is what that stands for. So an Open Class Repair Initiator basically, and we've talked about it a little bit in the other couple of workshops, it's a repair initiator that doesn't locate what the exact problem is. Many repair initiations locate exactly what the problem is, usually through repetition. But an open class one just kind of leaves it up for the person who has to do the repair to figure out what was repairable. Here's the question. Is this an open class repair initiator or is it a continuer? Because its status there influences how we look at his next contribution. It looks like a repair initiator because if you notice her eyebrows when she does it, she does this eyebrow flash that, I mean, it's like the eyebrows almost go off her forehead. I mean, they're really high, right? Mm-hmm.
And also she's the native speaker, so that is even more important because he's looking for her to try marks, and then she's like, what?
Yeah, right? So that makes it look like it's a repair initiator. But he seems to treat it as a continuer. So, and V definitely, provides kind of a continuer. Her eyebrows don't rise nearly as much. And she kind of gives this claim of understanding. And, yeah, John.
So what is being repaired if it's an OCRI?
That's the thing, is OCRIs leave it completely open to what could be repaired. It doesn't locate it.
Right, I just don't see anything.
What does I see on
Economia?
that is correct? What would she, I think what you're saying that what he said was clear, right, or correct?
Yeah,
He
but he
asked-
try marks it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, so would responding to a try mark count as the OCRI?
So what are the possible types of responses to this here, right? So if she got the economia as a try mark, what would be the most natural response for saying, yes, I've got you? Yeah, a nod, right? And so we have a little bit of confusion here in that way because her reaction,
Triggers what happens next.
yes, but it's not clear what that reaction functions as here.
Like, you haven't learned economia yet? Serious? You haven't learned that word?
That could be what it is. I don't know. Uh-huh.
If he kind of like gets that she's kind of like double guessing what he said, he's code switching in order to get understood.
Exactly. And that's why this line matters, is that his code switch later to business seems to relate to this, right?
Can we watch that little part for a second?
¿Y tú? ¿Tienes clases que te gustan?
Sí, me gusta mi clase de economía y mi clase de empresas o business.
I could be like economia, really?
Yeah, it could be like.
Right?
Also, good job you know that word. So yeah.
There you go. Right? So this,
Or maybe an affiliation. She's like, me too.
so, of course, those little subtle things matter here, right? Yeah.
Also, I thought that going to business happened because he thought that his response wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So he needed to keep talking.
Yes. Right? That is very much a possibility there.
You're waiting for him to keep talking.
Yeah. Right? You notice that he again try marks business and puts his gaze back towards P again in this spot as well. And then you get the continuer, so she doesn't treat it as problematic here, right? And then S expands, kind of initiates the expansion here. There's voluntarily doing more. Accounting for his answer, assessing the class, saying that it's interesting. I don't know what to do with that so. Spanish speakers? Does it seem okay? Is this so Spanish or is it English?
I think
At this point, at this
it's
point,
very
I use
difficult to. It's like the and something like that.
Yeah.
It's something that is just supporting.
Mm-hmm. So,
It's a word search.
and that's kind of what it looks like here. He's doing the word search behavior anyway because his gaze has gone off.
So is English or Spanish?
It's English, but I use it, at this point,
Right.
I use it in Spanish.
It's one of the most
All the
common, some of the most
So,
common.
maybe, so,
Yeah.
now I'm speaking in English.
But
So all they
vamos a
can
repetir.
do that.
Yes.
no,
But
no,
for
no.
him,
In
maybe
the context
bigger
of
in
here.
their home country, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
here with the contact,
So,
maybe
yeah.
when I'm teaching,
so
I use
for
it.
specific Spanish of the US, this is acceptable and you will hear
Exactly.
so as
Okay.
a crutch or.
Uh-huh. But for him, it's because of his native language.
It's not because he's
It's not
bilingual.
his, yeah.
No,
He's not
meaning
bilingual.
that when we're
I know.
grading,
I
is our
know.
model the native or is our model the bilingual?
That's what
My
I'm
model is
saying.
the bilingual.
Exactly.
I think it's the monolingual.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, it's
So P then treats this as finished, right? She provides the assessment, and V then initiates expansion, and he's having a great deal of difficulty here. And then P initiates repair, and there's something quite beautiful that happens here, right? Which is something that happens in languages where first and second person verbs are done differently.
Is P initiating the repair or S doing it in 224?
Okay, so he's having difficulties, but he doesn't seem to be trying to get anybody else to do anything, right?
Trying to self-repair at that point?
He's doing lots of self-repair attempts, but you notice he keeps putting out a candidate and then going, no, candidate, no, right? And so the tú tienes is the repair initiator there. And she provides an embedded correction with the yo tengo.
This would not be marked as
So the
asking for
thing
help.
so.
Would you say it's asking for help?
But some students do ask for help
No,
without
that's
words,
right.
or at least
They
indicate that
they
they need
need
help.
Oh, like they show the struggle.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
struggling
Yeah.
By
and I'm
making
not.
it into a question, like,
But he's not making it into a question.
Yeah, I mean, we try to teach them that they have to be a little more specific when they need help.
Yeah. And
He could have been a little more specific.
Yeah, also, I particularly saw that he was like jumping in without even being asked anything. So I was kind of nervous about that. Like, let him
let him finish, right?
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah,
this
but
is,
the speed of the conversation kind of asks.
No,
more.
of course,
They
yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
they want to know more, they are kind of, so they want to help to see, let's get
No.
this out of the way so we can.
Exactly, no, I
Mhm.
get it, but I didn't think he was actually saying, oh, I have a problem, let's ask them. They kind of provide the answer
Yeah.
without him asking.
Yeah,
That's what I.
right.
well, and that's where the CA side of this comes in, because
Yeah, no, he did
So,
show.
for this particular criteria, asking for help when she or he cannot get an idea across, do we put an NA or do we think he did ask, but he didn't do a good job? So we
in
may
this
not
spot, I'd say
say
he's not. He does that elsewhere,
actively asking.
right? Since he's not looking at her, I would say this is not asking for help. He's dealing with it solitarily at this point, right? That doesn't mean elsewhere that he's not asking for help. The try marking is asking for help in the other places. But I would say that he's not asking for it here. But the reason to come in with the repair initiation and the embedded correction is that there is a preference for progressivity, to keep things going. And if she's being treated, if this is a conversation that is actually a conversation and not orientation to the task, then that preference for progressivity is going to override the preference for being a learner and a tutor, right? Of course, these things go back and forth. They're not through the whole thing. But this seems related to, okay, yeah, you've had your time, let's move forward. Yeah, and I do see this as supportive. There's this nice little embedded correction there that gives him the example of something that he could say. While not saying this is what you should say, she aims at herself.
Actually, not what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's like, that's for help, that's not.
And he rejects the repair initiation and the embedded correction and continues, he experiences more trouble. We've got V providing a candidate word, with tome, no response, and then she provides another one, and he accepts this through the repetition. Then you get the explicit correction, for the first person, second person issues. Acceptance of the correction, continues his turn, expands the information beyond where he needs to go, and you're orienting to content now that the form issue has already been taken care of. Moving on to the content issue.
I have a question there.
Yeah.
What about the code switching with the numbers?
What do you think? You would think that, he knows these numbers by 142, but he's talking about classes at an American institution.
Exactly. So, yeah, and he says 100 before saying 100.
Yeah. So it's interesting that he repairs to English.
Yeah.
Right? One thing that I do want to point out that I thought was beautiful was how he goes on to say that the teacher is intelligent, the class is interesting, before moving on to saying the tests are difficult. Yeah. Which I think shows a great deal of IC in and of itself. So I want to get to this. You remember at the beginning, I said, I don't have an answer. The answer, the closest thing that I have to an answer, is that applying these rubrics is interpretive and it takes practice, right? And so the number one answer about how to make this easier and how to balance these things is an answer that most of you probably aren't going to want to hear from me. That is, when you've got an extra 30 minutes, I know who has extra 30 minutes, but when you do, grab a piece of data and practice, right? Grab a minute of data and sit there with it and try to apply the rubric to it and try to recognize what the actions are. Because when we wait till, and remember, I've gone through this too, I'm as guilty of it as anyone. We wait until the test and try to apply the rubric without having that practice, and we run into the same old problems over and over and over again because we wait till that time. Occasionally, just grab a minute of data and sit there with it and practice these things with it. And I think that just like any skill, it'll get more comfortable, right? So that's really the only answer, and I know it's not a terribly satisfying answer, but I do think that's really the answer for what we need to do with this stuff. But there are 3 questions that we can talk about a little bit now and then also just continue talking about later. Specific challenges that we're facing when conducting the oral IC assessments. We faced a whole bunch of them with the rubric today, right? That interpretive aspect of it. The challenge, concrete, active steps we can take to meet these challenges. Because, and again, I'm guilty of this too, most of the time, just don't have the time, right? I mean, that's what we do each time. And like I said, I've done this too. But what are some concrete active steps we can do with this? And then as we practice and train, what other phenomena related to IC might be worth considering?